This is Everything is Personal with Len and May.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Everything is Personal.
Personal.
This is our first show of the new year. There you go. And as always, Mr. John Small, welcome.
Hi, everybody, and it's so great to be here with you.
That's a new one.
That's a new one. I've got to improve my voice, my sound. It's starting to seem like a morning radio show here at Everything's Personal. Anyway, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and our guest probably thinks we're absolutely crazy. We haven't even introduced him yet. We're already off the rails.
I'm just super excited today, I gotta say, because look, we have rock stars, like we have musicians, we have real rock stars on the show, but today I'm super excited because we have a personal mentor, hero, rock star of the cannabis industry with us. So I want to just introduce Dr. Ethan Russo. Thank you so much for joining us. I just want to say one thing. There was I think it was in Portland. I was speaking at a conference. I think it's a cannabis science conference. There's so many I can't remember. But Ethan was the first speaker. I had to follow him, which was very, very difficult
Tough
to do.
act.
But follow Ethan is very difficult. But there's a thing that Ethan said. Maybe it wasn't even on that conference, but there was one that he said, and I want to reiterate this to our listeners: the reference to the word strain. And I love this reference because Ethan was so serious when he studied. He's like, why do we keep referring, and I'm paraphrasing, and he didn't even say a word yet. Why do we keep referring to cannabis as a strain? Because a strain refers to a virus. Why are we calling this amazing therapeutic plant a strain when it shouldn't be called a strain? It should be called cultivar cucumber.
Such a good point. Words are important. Yeah.
So welcome, Ethan. I was talking over you. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Ethan Russo.
Sure. Well, I should start there by saying technically plants don't have strains. That applies to bacteria and viruses. So we prefer the term chemovar, which is short for chemical variety. And I like that in particular because it highlights the heterogeneity, the differences chemically in different types of cannabis. And really for anyone who's partaken, whether so-called recreationally or for therapeutic purposes, they understand that there are distinct differences between one type of cannabis and another. And it doesn't just relate to the concentration of THC, but rather the panoply of the different ingredients that it contains.
Ethan, can you give us, for those who might not be familiar with us, would you mind giving us a sort of short elevator pitch of who you are and your accomplishments?
Thank you. Yes.
Sure. So I'm a board certified child and adult neurologist. I was in neurology practice in Missoula, Montana for 20 years, up to 2003. But along the way, I really got deeply involved in medicinal plants. And circa 1996, when Prop 215 was happening in California, I really got enmeshed in the cannabis controversy. Basically, that led to a lot of reading, beginning to publish and start a new journal. I was asked to join as a scientific advisor, GW Pharmaceuticals in 1998, the year they started. And they were the company that was first to develop pharmaceutical forms of cannabis, specifically Sativex and Epidiolex. And I was with them full time between 2003 and 2014, working on the clinical trials and also basic science studies related to THC, CBD, and specifically Sativex and Epidiolex. Subsequently, I've been with some private companies, culminating earlier this year in starting our own company called Credo Science, which is dedicated to a couple of different things. First, developing intellectual property related to cannabis, particularly non-THC applications, and the endocannabinoid system. And additionally, we've begun offering consultation work specifically for formulation services whether it be for supplement companies or the pharmaceutical industry. One of the things that I would maintain about cannabis is so far, most of the studies have been done with materials that I would say weren't optimized, meaning they could have been better than what they were in terms of the composition, which would in turn lead to hopefully better efficacy for whatever they were treating and also reduce side effect profiles.
That's great. And then just to disclose, we're also working on a study together with Credo and Ethan and some other people. So I just wanted to make sure that, in full disclosure, that's so we do have a business relationship in addition to, I would call Ethan a mentor and I think a friend. I'm not sure if he thinks that, but I think that.
Sure, definitely.
Well, you seem like friends. Yes, we've also paid him a boatload of money to appear on the podcast today. Full disclosure.
Full disclosure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wish that part were true.
Yeah. So everybody just listen. When you invite Ethan on your podcast or your talk, make sure that you pay him a lot of money.
Yeah, he's very expensive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would appreciate that, even though it's not quite the case.
All right. Well, we'll try it. We're trying for you. So we're like, as I said, we're very cognizant of time, so we're going to try to make this as quick as possible. But before I jump into a regular series of questions, I want to kind of get your thoughts. I usually don't do this with guests. We usually just go through questions, but because I have some of your time here, I thought I'd ask you. There's been this election that happened, and there was an election in Georgia. So now we have a shift in the Senate, and all these things are happening in terms of legalities of cannabis, possibly. So if you had a crystal ball and you were looking at it for the next year, or maybe even next few years with this Biden administration again in power, what do you think is going to happen with the cannabis industry in terms of legalities?
Sure. Well, it's a very topical question because things have totally changed in the last 48 hours.
Right, that's for sure.
With a change in leadership in the Senate in particular, there really is the opportunity for positive change now to an extent that we haven't seen in decades. I had always thought that when we got to 30 states that legalized, whether medically or adult use, that the feds would have to do something, but that didn't eventuate either. Joe Biden is a decent guy. He has evolved on so many issues, and I think he has the capability of evolving on cannabis. And I'm really hoping that Kamala Harris will have a lot of influence on this issue. Also, it seems that Merrick Garland is going to be the Attorney General. He, if he wishes, has the ability to finally deschedule cannabis and correct the historical and legal aberration of the Schedule I status of cannabis that's been present now for 50 years.
Right.
So I'm cautiously optimistic. There's so many other important items on the agenda. We'll just have to see. But I figure that the next 2 years really represent an opportunity that may not come again for God knows how long. I'm old enough to remember how close we were to cannabis legalization in the 70s.
Yeah.
And that went totally to hell, if I can say that word in this context.
You can say anything you want.
Yeah, I forgot to beep it out. I'll beep it out.
I think you should curse. I think you should definitely curse. It's more fun that way.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah, that it's kind of like the way psychedelics, were sort of in vogue for a minute until, the dark side happened. And I'm hoping I do feel like we have momentum at our backs, and it feels, even though we record this the day after the Capitol was stormed by an angry mob, it does feel like there's a positive momentum in the country, particularly for legalization. And we'll see. There are so many other issues that we need to deal with. Certainly the states are getting on board. I mean, I just read today that Cuomo they're ramping up. I mean, New York is next in line. So we're going to get there some way or another.
It's just, the question is, how is it going to be? Is it deschedule or is it reschedule? So this is
scheduling is not going to give us what we need.
Right.
I mean, people have talked for a long time about putting cannabis in Schedule 2.
Right.
Schedule 2 presupposes that there is an FDA approved preparation.
Right.
So if that were to happen, it would make research on cannabis marginally easier, but not much.
Right.
It really doesn't fit. It doesn't belong there. And we need another scheme that would regulate cannabis somewhat like alcohol is now.
Completely agreed. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only system that could work. There've been these roadblocks to research, let alone roadblocks to personal access. And I feel sorry for anybody at this point that thinks that people who use cannabis need to be incarcerated. That's a medieval attitude. Historically on this planet, there've been prohibitions to innumerable substances. None have worked, and they've all been vastly counterproductive.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And I completely concur. It has to be treated like alcohol prohibition. Just lift it and don't deschedule it. Don't reschedule it. Just lift it and let the states decide. Because if you're in a state that are like, I lived in Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania has a program where alcohol is sold through state stores. That's what they choose to do, but they regulate it. So states need to regulate it, and we need to have this interstate commerce, banking, and research. Once we do all that, now it becomes, a real regulated product, because it's not about not having regulations in place. It's about absolutely having regulations in place. And this gets us out of the dark ages into a real therapeutic product.
So people have to understand at this point, if you want a drug to be dangerous, the best thing you can do is make it illegal, because then there are no controls. What we're talking about with legalization provides the ability to control and regulate in a way that you have a product that will not only be more effective, but safer. And similarly, legalization makes it harder, not easier, for kids to get it. And minors. So this is really the answer, and hopefully it's one of those situations where the public has come around quite a long time ago. It's taken much longer for the politicians, but the chief obstructionist is not going to be in charge of the agenda in a couple of weeks, and that should help a great deal.
Agreed.
Right. No, I'm optimistic. We've got Jeff Sessions out of the way. He was a disaster.
Oh yeah,
for marijuana, and Trump, who was really just an opportunist. He probably would have voted either way. Whatever would have helped him.
If he thought he would win the election, he would be like,
I don't think he
legal.
I don't
care.
I don't think he had any moral objection. I think. What do you think the biggest obstacle is? In your experience right now, is it the stigma, that just the miseducation and the stigma around cannabis?
No, it's simple. I think they're taking a medical and scientific issue and trying to assign a moral value to it, and that never works. People, they should deal with their own morality. If they don't like something, don't do it. It's simple, and this applies to a lot of other things beyond drug use. But unless something clearly is dangerous in a way that it kills people, and I don't think that it should be subject to the kind of over control that we've seen applied to so-called illicit drugs.
Yeah, no, agreed. There is probably some lobbying efforts that are going on from big pharma, et cetera, and they've been for a long time. And Ethan, you know better than both of us, because you were part of that. I think GW showed big pharma a way that they can utilize the plant and actually produce medicines that are targeted medicines, instead of making these synthetic Marinol type of drugs. So I think that's also loosening the reins a little bit.
But they've been slow learners in that regard.
Very slow.
Specifically, there are two problems there. First, the drug companies are still oriented towards the idea that we need intellectual property, meaning a patent which can only come from a synthetic molecule that we
Right.
computer designed to work on this receptor with the highest affinity and the highest potency. And they'll worry about later when they find out how toxic it is.
Right.
They still don't get the idea of botanical medicine. They think that they can't patent it, whereas they can if it's a specific preparation for a specific use that can have attached intellectual property and patents.
Sure.
So that's one problem. The other is a lot of them have had programs in the past on cannabinoids and have gotten burned, if I may use that expression, because their products didn't work or were toxic, or again, they were relying on the single molecular theory of treatment rather than realizing that botanical medicines work with a bunch of different agents in concert, producing synergy, a boosting of effect, or what we call the entourage effect, which is the idea that you've got soloists like THC or CBD, whose benefits are enhanced by additional components, some of which might not seem to do too much on their own, but really add to the mix in a substantial way.
Right. And then you also have, you have the complexities of the plant, and then you have the complexity of the individual that has their own genetic predispositions. You're giving somebody something that's identical. We talked about this in the program, John, a bunch of times. Two people take the same thing and have a different experience with that. So there's definitely, studies that are worth doing in that realm also. This has been fascinating for me.
I'm learning a ton right here. I'm shutting up. I'm not. This is like,
I'm not sure if people
you've already given me like 5 story ideas for
I know,
a great
right?
entrepreneur. Yeah.
Let's get into the fun stuff. By the way, if there is something, Ethan, that you don't feel comfortable answering, just answer it anyway.
Or plead the fifth. Plead the fifth.
Okay. Yeah, plead the fifth. So first question is, please describe your first experience with cannabis.
Well, there are different ways to approach this. In 1970, I was behind the curve, I found, with my friends, and I spent most of the summer trying to get high. And I was a slow learner in that regard because it took me 7 tries. And the only I've never told this story publicly, but my parents have both passed away, so I think I can at this point.
You're okay. You're not going to get grounded.
Right.
My brother had gone to Stanford to summer school that summer and came home with a couple of ounces of Acapulco Gold, and we're talking about the real stuff then. We went up in the spare room and we were well into the second joint. He was wildly high, and I still wasn't getting off, but he had me hyperventilate. And when I came out of it, the density of the wall was changing. And I think I said, "Oh, wow." And my life was forever changed thereafter.
In a good way. Yeah.
I learned that night. Well, I mean, it was a landmark night.
Yeah.
I discovered the munchies. I also had loved the album Surrealistic Pillow by the Jefferson Airplane, but had never understood the lyrics until that night. Very great change in my life.
That's great. So you would say that it was you didn't have an adverse experience, you had a positive.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And Acapulco Gold, would you say, maybe under 10% THC at that time?
I suspect it was. I mean, at that time, most cannabis was seeded, and we know immediately that cuts the cannabinoid content about in half. So this would have been considered killer weed at the time, but we should really make a distinction. It is true to say that cannabis is a lot stronger on average now, but even in 1970, there was really high quality, potent cannabis available. Plus, the experience was much more varied than is available today. For better or worse, mostly worse, I would say. What we have on the market now is predominantly high THC, high myrcene varieties, which are great for couch lock, but a very different experience compared to the heterogeneous types of cannabis that were available from the old land races.
Yeah, agreed.
Before
100%.
selective breeding and prohibition caused the changes that we see today.
Yeah, completely agreed. I mean, my favorite was like a real true Durban at that time, and the real Durban poison, which I think I got to experience when I was in South Africa, but I'm not sure if it's even a land race anymore because everything is so interbred.
Yeah, very likely, and this has been the trend. So almost anywhere in the world that you go in the traditional cannabis growing areas, the land races have been supplanted by seeds from California and the Netherlands.
Right.
So it's been a homogenization actually, along with a selective breeding for potency. But you know, my personal bias is we need to find the old land races and reintroduce some of the value that they had, both in terms of different experiences, different profiles, and also disease resistance and other good things.
Yep, I agreed. Well, you kind of already touched on this, but John and I are both music guys, and we were talking earlier, you're a music guy too. You mentioned Jefferson Airplane, but during consumption, is there a go-to music? Do you like a genre? I know you mentioned the album, but is there anything like that you like? What's your go-to in terms of music? What do you like to listen to?
Well, I really have very eclectic tastes in music, so it could be anything.
What would be some examples of that from?
Well, you know, I was very attached to the psychedelic rock of San Francisco from the 60s and 70s.
So
But
the Dead,
oh, absolutely. Yeah. I had 9 live shows under my belt.
Nice.
So yeah, definitely. But also singer-songwriters, blues, reggae, almost everything. I'm not an opera buff.
Yeah.
Here.
And can you educate John a little bit on the blues? He seems to be not a blues guy, and I'm trying.
It's getting better.
I'm trying.
You're slowly
I'm chiseling away at this.
I like things about it. It just isn't my go-to if I just want to listen to music. I'm not going to be like,
sure, but I mean, this is real American roots music.
Yeah, right. I get it. I appreciate it. I mean, without the blues, we wouldn't have rock and roll. We wouldn't have hip hop. We wouldn't have all the music that I love. I just sometimes going back to the roots is not always my favorite.
There's so much
iteration of it.
Blues. There's just so much. You can't. Blues is not like a broad brush. If you look at all these bands that came out of it, there's so many different varieties of blues. But I'll keep. Yeah,
you keep trying. You're also going to have to. We haven't talked about it, but you're also going to have to turn me on funk because my son has been trying to get me into funk, and it's like, listen, nobody likes hip hop more than I love hip hop music, so I get where funk came from and I love stuff that has been sampled in the funk.
I mean, doesn't James Brown?
James Brown.
Yeah, but I don't think of James Brown as funk. I think of him as soul, and I think of funk as like George Clinton and like Parliament.
That's P-funk. That's different.
That's different. I don't know. So we probably should define what funk is. But to me, funk is that stuff that kind of came out in the kind of early 70s, mid 70s.
I love this. We will have a whole funk because I'm a huge funk.
Okay. I mean, James Brown, I forget about it. Let's go on the record just saying that I absolutely worship James Brown. I actually went down a rabbit hole the other day where I was on YouTube and I just started watching old James Brown concert footage from when he was on Italian television shows in the late 60s. It's like some of the greatest things I've ever seen. It's like the greatest. We have to link to the video and it's incredible. Okay. I'm sorry. So I went on James Brown tangent there.
All right. So we got music down. All right. Third question is, what has cannabis meant in your life?
Well, cannabis has been very good to me. People probably think I'm high all the time. Nothing could be further from the truth. I am an extremely rare user, usually because I'm treating something. But part of that is because of the changes we discussed. I think in the past it was a lot more enjoyable. Is that attainable again? Yes, but we need serious work on the composition.
That is a market worth exploring because I'm with you.
Absolutely.
That I find most of the stuff that's out there way too strong, and I can't, I mean, can't function with it. And I don't want couch lock. I want to be able to work and focus. And I know that you guys are working on this, so I'm excited.
Well, absolutely. But,
yeah.
again, what, you haven't asked this, but let me pose my own question, which is, what did I like to do when I was high?
Yeah.
Well, the greatest thing was going out and communing with nature.
That's my favorite thing to do. Hiking while I have to. I'm sorry I stepped on what you were saying, but you just triggered that. Is my favorite, absolute favorite thing. You microdose, take a little bit and you go on a nature hike. And I can do that for hours, listening to music while I do it. It's my favorite thing to do. Absolutely.
And you think it's just because everything is a little bit enhanced and you're able to see things that you normally might not see.
Right. It's just the appreciation and the communing
connection
with nature, feeling integrated with the environment, just all of that.
Yeah.
And appreciating the intricacies and it's just the appreciation and stimulation. In 1970, I soon went off to college at Penn. So Len, you're familiar. I mean,
yes,
it was
I am.
a very urban environment, not a great place to be too high.
I went to Temple, so North Philly. I can get West Philly, North Philly.
And also it wasn't the safest place in the world at that time. But we managed to have a good time. But really, what I liked best was getting out in the nature.
Yeah, I would say that walking around West Philly is not a lot of nature.
You got to go to the Poconos.
You gotta watch yourself behind every corner. But I mean that's just such an amazing thing. And what Ethan was saying before with the high THC myrcene dominant, you have these people refer to as indica dominant. That's really what you're getting these kind of experiences, and it's very, very difficult to connect because you can consume a little too much of that, and now it deters you from wanting to go walk in nature. You just want to sit on the couch and eat chips. And I definitely think that I'll kind of refer to as either microdosing or find the right formulation that is just enough THC and a different terpene profile that connects to you. And now when you find that, that's your go-to. The challenge with that is now we get into the strain names. Is we know we don't use strains, but the strain names. So you find your blue dream. Okay, my blue dream is perfect. That's exactly my profile. Then you go into dispensary number 2, you get the same blue dream, and it's no longer a blue dream. It's something else. So we got to get out of this whole naming thing of these chemovars and that.
Show me the chemical profile.
Exactly.
I want to see the certificate of analysis, and then I'll tell you what you've got and what it might be good for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So final question, bonus questions, like a fun one. Please describe your room growing up, if you remember what it looked like.
Well, there were parental influences. I switched rooms when my brother went off to college, but most of the time I was sharing a room with my younger brother. This is an old house in Massachusetts built in like 1824. So there was a lot of wallpaper. That's a weird and tough question.
Yeah. Did you have posters? Did you have posters in your room, or maybe when you switched rooms with your brother, did you have a Grateful Dead poster, like a black light?
College was very different.
Your room in college,
like posters and such,
because it's an interesting thing, because when we ask people this question, like a lot of people don't remember, and some people are like, oh, I was a big Van Halen fan, so I had Van Halen posters, or I was a big I had centerfolds from High Times, or Playboy centerfolds, or nothing, or my parents created my room and that's it. I didn't touch anything. I never put anything on the walls. So it's interesting to see, because you kind of get to connect with a person as they're growing up and have them kind of go back in time. Did you stay in the dorms when you were in Penn?
I was in the freshman quadrangle, which was like old English architecture, and may have been gargoyles and stuff. It was sort of a weird place. Second year, I was in what was called Super Block, which at one time was the set of three, the tallest reinforced concrete structures in the world for a time. That was in a communal living arrangement on one floor. We actually got credit for living together. That's a whole other story.
And was it like one bathroom in the hall that everybody had to share?
No, it was separate rooms, generally 3 people. Yeah. And then my third and last year at Penn, I was in a house with close friends, which was really cool. We had communal dinners, and yeah, it was very tight and fun.
Yeah, I remember when I was in Temple, I didn't live on campus. I had an apartment, and my friends had an apartment off campus. And North Philly is not the safest, friendliest. I don't know how it is now. I've been out of Philly for the last 15 years.
Oh boy, has a place changed more than Philadelphia.
It changed a lot.
Is it really changed? And
it changed a lot. But
it got gentrified, sort of. And
oh well, beyond that, I mean, it used to be a food desert.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the food.
Now they've got incredible food in downtown Philadelphia.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah, Stephen Starr, and I don't drop names, but he was one of the originators of kind of on the food scene, opened up a whole bunch of restaurants or gourmet. Muramoto, the Iron Chef, if anybody knows, he opened his first restaurant in Philly. So Philly is definitely that foodie place. But as far as safety goes, look, I went to high school originally, this school called High School of Engineering and Science. It was located on 17th and Norris. If anybody I'm going to try to paint a picture. So we were bused into the school. It had barbed wire all around, and it had crack houses everywhere. So we walk out at recess, and we're not allowed to go outside the fence. So we're around, and then I see this old caddy pull up. And there's 2 guys that get out, and they run in with baseball bats, and they pull a guy out, and they're beating him with baseball bats right in front of our school. We're witnessing this. And this happened multiple times over and over. And when I went to Temple, which is not far from where I went to high school, right off Broad Street in North Philly, this girl that I was dating, she decided to switch from Penn State to go to Temple so she can be close to me. And she parked on, I remember, Diamond Street. And I told her, I was like, hey, be careful where you park. And she went to walk by herself. And the first day she went to Temple, she got mugged. Purse stolen, and that was my college.
Those are the old days.
Ethan, thank you so much. Where can people find more about you, Credo, anything else on social media, anything else?
Well, there's a ton. I mean, if people just Google my name, they'll get hundreds of pages of drug-related material. But the website is Credo, CR.
Oh, you froze, right? Here, you froze for a minute. So CREDO.
CREDO-science.com. Credoscience.com. For my readings, available at Ethan Russo, EJNRSSO. And that's my personal website, so there shouldn't be any issue with copyrights or anything of that sort.
Maybe I'll have you say it one more time, because for some reason you're glitching a little bit, and I want to make sure that we have that clearly on the tape.
So yeah, ethanrusso.org has my writings.
Perfect.
Well,
great. Well, Ethan, so great to meet you.
To some more things together. I think this is going to be a great year. We're going to be doing some incredible things, and I'm so grateful and so appreciative to actually be connected with you and to call you a friend, because you actually confirmed that. So thank you. Thank you for doing so. And yeah, I think.
Can I be your friend too? Well, we'll have to have a few more conversations.
Yeah, one more, John. Come on, it's the first one.
It's a first date.
You gotta hold hands, first date. Come on, you gotta get a little bit deeper in. But,
I want to be
thank you
his friend.
so much, and really thank you for all the work that you've done in this industry throughout. And I'm super grateful to be working together and helping people make a difference with this amazing plant. So
you
thank you
bet.
so much.
Namaste.
Thank you for your time.
Namaste.
All right, take care. All the best.
Very cool. We're going to talk about you while you're still there on the, here, I'll get you off. There we go. Oh, well, I just, Ethan, you can sign out if you want.
Yeah, I can just click leave.
I don't know how to click him to leave. Oh, there he goes.
There it is.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Another really interesting guest. Where do you find these people? How do you meet these people? Just in your circle of influence?
It's interesting you say that. I just had a conversation with one of my friends who's an owner of a large cannabis company too, and he was telling me, like, he's mentioning, hey, this and that. I'm like, I know this person. I know. He goes, you know everybody. I don't know everybody, but this is one thing that I'm really good at. And if I can share this with the audience, it's about being a person of your word and follow up and follow through. And I think that's where, and I learned this from a mentor many years ago when I was in commercial real estate. Somebody said, most realtors don't pick up the phone. They let it go to voicemail, and and they don't fight for the first lead. And you have a 50% better chance of getting an opportunity if you're the first to respond. So I would go to the person who's answering the phones in the office, and I would say, I don't care what time it is. If there's a phone call, patch it to me. Yeah. And I would also be first. So follow up and follow through. So I believe just like being able to be a person who's accountable helps with getting these relationships and being there for people, coming with contribution and not asking anything in return. And when there is an opportunity to do that, you can ask.
Right. And it's not awkward because you've established not a transactional relationship with them like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think so. That's sort of my thing.
That works.
But, yeah. I had the thing to talk about what happened in Georgia and what happened in DC. We kind of touched on it with Ethan about legalization, but I wanted to get your thoughts on what you think, because I'm not a political guy. I just think it's interesting to see how things shift. And there's so many posts. I don't watch the news, so you probably have a lot more information than I do about this. I don't watch the news. I don't know anything about. I'm not a political guy. I don't know what's going on, but I kind of see trends, and I see people saying, okay, well, this is. Some people were saying this is white privilege. People would have been shot if this was this, and I was like, didn't we just have the same exact thing, but the opposite flip side of that, where people were looting and rioting on Rodeo Drive, and the police moved to the side and they said, here you go. And I think I saw the same thing yesterday with whoever was doing that. I just believe there's imbalance, and then there's a correction. And I always believe sort of an ebb and flow. It's one way, then it's the other way. And I think this is what's happening in politics. And I think, we had Obama, that the pendulum swung this way. And then we had Trump, the pendulum swung the opposite way. And in some way, somehow, we're sort of regulating and getting back to the middle again. But maybe that's my perception of it.
I think that seems right to me. And I think when I was watching what was happening yesterday, I was kind of wondering whether this was the end of something or the beginning of something, right? So to me, it felt more like the end of something, and I'm hoping, and maybe that's just wishful thinking, but it was like, this is the end of like 4 years of misinformation. And I think the thing that was making me the most crazy is all the people that were saying like pretending to be surprised that this happened. Like you'd have to be like even if you didn't follow one day of politics, like to be surprised that this was coming. I mean, it's just so disingenuous. I mean, this was always the plan. And Absolutely. Trump like telegraphed it from miles away that this was going to happen. I still, there's going to be a lot of, and probably by the time this airs, there'll be a lot more written about this, but I am confused about why it was so easy for them to get into the Capitol. But I don't also want to propagate like conspiracy theories, like, oh, there was a bunch of like white nationals working for the Capitol Police that like let them in and they were all in on because to me, that's just as bad as the other side that makes.
Yeah, but didn't that happen in Portland? Didn't the same thing happen in Portland where they just let them take over.
Yeah, sometimes they let people, I mean, sometimes that's part of the policing. It's like they don't want the, again, I'm not a police guy, so I really can't weigh on this, but I get the impression that they don't want to, like just as long as they're not damaging like property and stuff, like let them, and they also don't want to be photographed like beating up people with batons and stuff like that, right? But then it always ends up happening anyway. And it is true, like, let's face it, I do feel like they dealt with some of the Black Lives Matter protests a little bit differently, but at the same time, I don't want to get into here and there, because I don't think that was really the point of yesterday and why it was so terrible. I do think that it was inevitable. It was, but I'm hoping that it's not really where the country is. I know a lot of people are there. I know that there are, but when they say like, oh, 70 million people voted for Trump, I don't think 70 million people would have like climbed the Capitol's walls. And, I still think that's a small minority. And I think
I agree.
Just like on the left, there's a small minority of Antifa, whatever it is. So I'm somewhat optimistic. In some ways, it's accelerating all this stuff that has been so frustrating for many of us who do follow politics. Like it's just shining such a bright spotlight on the problems. I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, I was surprised a bit that some of the people in Congress still voted to not recognize the Electoral College votes, and even after all that. But they're politicians, and they're trying to. So it's pretty twisted. I'm really hoping that by the time this airs, well, first of all, by the time this airs, I think Trump's going to be out of office because we're a little bit ahead. So that'll be nice. Hopefully we'll still be alive. This won't be discovered by somebody who's going through the nuclear holocaust and finds a lost tape. But I'm optimistic about, like I said, with Dr. Russo, like, the Democrats have a tall order in front of them, but as far as cannabis, they really could make some serious impacts in these 2 years. I just don't know how much of a, he's a real moderate, Biden, and I agree. I think we're sort of moving more towards the center anyway in the world, in the country. Yeah. Again,
he was a super anti-cannabis guy, Biden.
But he's changed. He evolved.
He's changed, and you know what? Ultimately, it depends on the people that he puts around him to make the decision. And we're two white guys, so I'm not qualified in any way to talk about what Black Lives Matter and how the different changes. And I've talked about these stories before. I definitely believe that there is a power thing, and because when I got arrested several times, I was treated differently the different times that I was arrested. This color of my skin didn't change. It was the same every single time, but the interaction that I had was pretty much the same, because I always felt like I don't want to add fuel to the fire. I already know the situation, and I my hand, whatever you tell me to do, I am doing, because I don't want to get beat up by cops, regardless. And I'm not getting racial profile. I'm not getting any of that stuff. I understand all that, but there's a human element to that connection where somebody can say, you're doing something wrong. We're going to give you due process. And maybe it's because of my color of my skin, where I get the opportunity. And then the other time, the same exact situation, but there was excessive force that's being used. It didn't come from me. My energy wasn't different, but the energy that I received was different. So I definitely believe that there is that whole power thing where just some people in that position shouldn't be in that position, should be retrained in that position, and completely take a different approach to their police power. Your power is to serve me and to protect. It's not about to insert your power that you may have, whatever is going on in your life, to be able to use that against me. That's not the
right. And again, we can go back and forth, because I feel like if there were images of like a Black person sitting in Nancy Pelosi's office with his feet up on her desk, like, oh my God, the reaction to that, I feel like would have been
of course,
a lot different. And so there is a double standard, but I also think by dwelling on that particular part of the issue, it kind of takes away from the real issue, which is like, those guys were a mob. That was a terrorist act, and it wasn't handled well. And I think a lot of people are going to get fired, hopefully, for that. I'm hoping that a lot of those people, they have them all on tape, just like they got all those rioters on tape and started making arrests. They've already started getting people, already started talking about arresting. So hopefully by the time this airs, a lot of these people that we saw in those images, like that freaking guy dressed like a with his weird Viking horns and his Chewbacca uniform. I mean, standing on the podium, like if that guy isn't in jail, I give up. Like,
but dude, you know what's funny about this? You just brought up this is such a fucking amazing point, because I gotta highlight this and underline it. If this was a black or brown person that was doing that, I mean, the media, everybody would have a field day. Oh my God, terrorists and whatever you want to say. The headlines are, I've gotten so many memes about this is what happens when Burning Man is canceled.
Yeah.
And the guys
right. So everybody thinks it's funny, right?
It's
suddenly
funny.
not scary or threatening.
It's
not funny.
It's
because that guy, I mean, there was guys with Auschwitz shirts in Camp Auschwitz. Exactly. Did you see all that? I mean, those guys are messed. That is not a funny, it is actually the furthest thing. Funny? No, yeah, funny? Camp Auschwitz is pretty funny. Yeah, that's pretty hilarious. No, I mean, it's couldn't be further from Burning Man. I've never been to Burning Man, but I'm sure that crowd could not be further from the Burning Man crowd.
No, that's all love and
yeah, exactly. So those are bad people, and and those are the people that really are the core of Trump's following, in my opinion. Yeah. So, I know a lot of people voted for him that are people that I like. I work with a lot of them. I think they were I was surprised somebody said to me, who I talked to yesterday, who voted for, I'm like, well, you voted for Trump. And she's like, yeah, but I didn't vote for that. Well, of course you voted for that. That's always what it's been. I don't know what the hell you're talking. How can you separate the two?
I had a very similar conversation with somebody very close to me, and they were very upset. So I asked, what are you upset about? The election results? What are you upset about? And the answer was upset about the election results in Georgia and that a woman got killed. That was what they were upset about.
The woman got killed. I mean, I've seen the footage. She was rushing, she probably shouldn't have been killed, but she was rushing and they probably, again, if it was a black woman, I don't think they would have been upset. But anyway, that's just my opinion. It was a vet. She happened to be a vet from San Diego. Yeah. She was rushing a security checkpoint with where the people go through the metal detector, right? Yeah. And I think people got scared. Look, at that point, nobody knew what the hell was going on. Yeah. And she was trying to break into it. Anyway, she should have been killed. That was such a fiasco on so many levels. That security, I will never understand how.
It's a Capitol building. I've been to the Capitol building.
Right.
I've been there, and I can tell you the security is super, super, super tight. I mean,
it just makes you think, can you imagine if a terrorist, real terrorist with a real agenda, went in there, how easy would it have been? I mean, none of those people were even armed.
Well, that's why I think this was, it
seemed like an inside job somewhat, but anyway.
Yeah.
But not, I don't know. I don't want to go there because I feel, again, I'm so over conspiracy theories, and it's just, we'll never know.
We might know someday.
Maybe we'll know. I mean, there's definitely some footage. My son kept showing me things of just watching the cops kind of open the
it's come on in, it's open, come on in.
Yeah.
It's funny. We'll find out when they release the alien footage, then since when we'll find out about what's happening there too.
Right.
Yeah, Joe Rogan invited the aliens to come in now. This is a perfect time. Come on in. So
right.
I think it's funny. I mean, that's not funny, but it's funny.
No, that Joe Rogan invited them.
All right. So I want to we wanted to do a show on sample albums. So I wanted to kind of do a preface to the show. I found this blog, and there was a bunch of different people that were talking about, and so they did the top 10 sample-based albums. So you haven't seen this list, I don't think. So I'm going to go over it with you, and I'm going to get your thoughts. And if we want, we can play clips, or we can just put in clips later on, because I think if we play clips of every album, it might take too long. And
especially with our technical, I'll be like, I'm on YouTube.
I forgot.
I forgot
to press the button.
Yeah.
All right. So you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a sound effect?
Here we go. I gotta really get some new sound effects, don't I?
By the way, there we go. I stepped on your sound effect. Do it again.
And yes, I'm ready.
What shirt do you have on? I forgot. I see Wild.
I'm wearing Wild Streets. It's I went to an incredible graffiti exhibit, sort of a retrospective graffiti exhibit when I was in Brooklyn a few years ago, I think 2019, and it was in Williamsburg, and it was probably the best graffiti exhibit or hip hop sort of thing I've ever seen. It was unbelievable. It was just an entire building had been taken over, where they basically had like pictures of, subways from the 70s, but they also had like original artwork from the 70s. And they had all these, like they had Rakim's jacket that he's wearing in in one of his album covers. Yeah, and they had, it was just like it was just like a total tribute to hip hop culture. It was so cool.
Wasn't that, didn't they have that in the
Geffen?
What was the name of that other exhibit? The photo exhibit, the hip hop photo exhibit. We talked about it.
Oh yeah. When we went to the I'm looking up at the Gordon Parks. No, what was that?
By CA.
Yeah, so there's that photo gallery by the
They had Rakim's jacket there too.
Oh, they did. Okay, so his jacket has made the rounds.
Yeah. It's in where the hell are they doing the exhibit? Abu Dhabi or one of those places right now. So they moved it into the Middle East.
By the way, this is reminding me, there's a very interesting documentary that PBS just put out about Keith Haring, which kind of goes over a lot of the, just like that era that we love so much of, like early 80s, mid 80s New York, and the hip hop and that sort of intersection between hip hop and art at that time. And I knew nothing about Keith Haring, so I recommend it a lot.
He was hitting up trains.
Yeah, he was hitting up trains, but it was all like performance art, and there was people, and he was very into sharing his art. He was kind of like the original Banksy. He was like all into public art, and that wasn't really happening before him. I mean, it was happening in the graffiti world, but he figured out a way to kind of like commercialize it somewhat. From Pennsylvania, from the Amish part of Pennsylvania, like the really
Lancaster.
Lancaster, Pennsylvania, super Amish. All right, so hit me up with the samples. I should give credit. Have you ever heard of for those listening, I'm about to give you a secret weapon, but it is so interesting, the whosampledwhat.com.
Oh yeah.
That is one of my favorite websites.
I love it.
It's just, if you ever wonder, where did I recognize that song?
I use it all the time.
I use it all the time too.
And it's funny because I started looking up Kanye songs. I think he does a masterful job in using samples, and he uses a lot of house music samples. So he must have been like,
because he's from Chicago, right? I mean, makes sense.
Chicago House, Joey Beltram, all those guys. By the way, I'm wearing a Run the Jewels shirt. Here's my.
Oh, I love that. Wow. That's cool. Yeah, that's dope.
Run the Jewels is my current favorite hip hop group.
Killer Mike.
Yeah, and LP and Killer Mike. Amazing. I highly recommend their stuff is amazing. They have a show on HBO, like a concert show. So I highly recommend if anybody wants to see like live hip hop. Incredible. All right. Ready for the top 10 samples. Okay. So number 10, we have Meat Beat Manifesto, Storm the Studio.
I don't know it.
Do you know that album?
No, Meat Beat Man. And who's the artist?
The artist is Meat Beat Manifesto. So
no, I don't.
Manifesto, it is like, if you remember like Skinny Puppy, Front 242, all those sort of industrial type of bands, they are one of those, and they use a ton of samples like James Brown. They use Chemical Brothers, Renegade Soundwave, Jack Dangers, etc. So that's number 10 in 1988. So I would say that's early industrial. Number 9, and by the way, this album I didn't know either. There were some that I don't know. So this one is the band called Plug, Plug, Drum and Bass for Papa.
Okay.
1996.
Wow.
And
these are sample only records?
These are the best. So the category is the 10 classic albums of sample-based music.
Okay.
This is using samples, and the best use of samples top 10. So they used, there was a bunch of samples, but it's drum and bass music. If you listen to it, it's very interesting. A lot of melodic drum and bass, because I did listen to this.
Now you're making me want to go back and listen to all this. It's kind of a weird list because you could we'll get into the whole thing, because you basically say like any hip hop record that came out before 1989 was basically a sample record, right? Because they were just using samples.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that list. It gets better.
Okay, good.
More connected.
I know what's coming soon. Yeah, I can feel it coming.
So next is African Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force.
Of course, Planet Rock.
Planet Rock.
Okay.
Planet Rock. And the Trans Euro Express. It was the big sample there.
That was so revolutionary. So they were basically taking stuff that was coming out of Europe, Kraftwerk, and then bringing it to the New York hip hop scene.
So revolutionary. I don't think people give that record enough credit.
Yeah.
I mean, the inside hip hop people do, but it's so revolutionary to take Kraftwerk.
I know. How did they find Kraftwerk? I know.
Yeah. How do you find
digging through the crates for sure?
African Bambaataa and Zulu Nation, man. Yeah. Besides all the personal stuff that he's got going on right now, which people can Google and look up. I don't want to disparage anybody's personality, but from the standpoint of music, like legendary Planet Rock right there. So number 7 is J Dilla, Donuts.
Oh,
2006. I believe the entire album is pretty much samples.
Okay.
J Dilla.
2006 too. Wow, he had to clear all those.
Exactly, but I think that he was also taking, if I remember correctly, I saw the documentary about this. I think he was taking samples and he was modifying them. So there was a whole controversy because he didn't get clearance for some of them, but he said that he made them his own, so he didn't have to. But somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But definitely the whole album of samples. All right, number 6, which is one of my favorite albums of all time, A Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory.
Yes, we've talked about that. I
should have wore that shirt today, and next time we'll both wear Low End Theory shirts. But I mean, I don't even know if there was anything really more to say about.
I mean, what do you say? Like it's the first time, one of the early times that people used that kind of bebop jazz in that way, and the flow and everything just worked. It wasn't the first, but it was like the most. And also, he wanted the whole idea of Low End Theory is that he wanted it to be the bass to be so low that you would be like listening to it on your car stereo and it would like shake your chest. So the whole thing is mixed in a really bass heavy way. It's cool.
Yeah. We should just do a native tongue show, just like all of it, and talk about all the influences, like what it spread, the roots and everybody else was influenced. I mean, it's such an amazing part of musical history.
It's true.
But okay. So number 5, I love this album as well. DJ Shadow. What is the name of it? Introducing. I don't know if you ever heard that album. It's an incredible album. So this is J Dilla actually gave this album as his influence. Incredible DJ Shadow album. Highly recommended. I definitely think that it was more of a dance type of album, but it had a lot of depth to it. So I definitely think everybody should listen to it. And Radiohead said that it was their influence for OK Computer.
Oh, wow. Well, that's all you have to say there.
There you go. Number 4. I'm surprised at how I thought this would be lower on the list, meaning that it would be close to number one. But Beastie Boys, Paul's Boutique.
That's the seminal sampled.
Yeah.
Like I think there's like, what is it? Hundreds of samples. And if you ever, there's a fantastic YouTube video that kind of, as they're playing one of the songs, that go to each sample. Yeah.
So exactly. I saw that. And just to give our audience an example of that, you just said 100 samples. So just Rhymin' and Stealin'. So Rhymin' and Stealin' alone has Led Zeppelin When Levee Breaks, Sweet Leaf, Black Sabbath, and The Clash. I mean, just that one song is using like amazing songs. Rick Rubin.
And they, of course, they beat the grandfather clause with that record, because shortly thereafter, that would have been an impossible record to make now because of all the clearing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's
and that's which is tragic because to me it's just I don't think it's theft, but that's a whole other conversation.
Well, we should get in the conversation because I was listening to Pharrell talk about like his the lawsuit that he lost, and he said this is the biggest thing that ever happened in his career, the most negative thing. Like he cried for days about that because he had no intention of doing that. Now, I think we talked about this before. When you really listen to one next to each other, there definitely is an influence. What the intent of that influence was, who the hell knows? But if you listen to all the blues songs from back in the day, you can make an argument.
But if you listen to like what's Tribe Called Quest that samples Lou Reed's Take a Walk on the Wild Side,
yeah,
right? And it's can I kick it? Yes, you can. Can I
kick it? Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's just a reinterpretation. Yes, he actually takes, I don't even think it's what it sounded like. I think he takes the actual bass line from,
it's Lou Reed's.
It's Lou Reed's
favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, he reinvents it in a way that makes it like a hip hop beat. And to me, it becomes a different thing. Now, I know Lou Reed was the original inventor of that and probably should get paid, but it's just sad because you couldn't make that record today. And it's such an important record in hip hop. And not because he just is doing a karaoke version of.
But you don't think Lou Reed got paid? You don't think that they?
I don't know if I think he got grandfathered in. I think there was a time. It's hard to remember this, but there was a time when rap artists would just take all that content and not have to pay for it because it wasn't really mainstream yet.
So you may know this and may not, but Rapper's Delight, right? Yeah. So Rapper's Delight is, people may think of this is the first real hip hop song or hit. That's Good Times,
right? And they had a house band, but they had a house band, right? They didn't actually take. They didn't know how to. They couldn't sample back then because that wasn't even technology. I mean, I guess they could have had them rap over a record, but I don't know. They had a house band, Sugar Hill Gang. Everything in Sugar Hill Gang that they did, everything of Sugar Hill Records is a house band. So I had a guy. Yeah,
they record, but they used Good Times.
They used the music,
right?
yeah. And I don't know, that might be different with rights because you're now not doing the public. It's like publishing versus the actual, song. Right. But that's how they got around at Sugar Hill Records. They would record versions of popular songs. I had a guy on my other podcast that did something that was to the music of Pull Up to the Bumper, Grace Jones.
Oh yeah.
Pull up to the bumper, baby. Yeah. They've done Genius of Love. They redid the Genius of Love bass line. Yeah, they used to I always wanted to do like a whole podcast just on that band. They used to play all that stuff for them. They had this band that would come in.
I'm curious. We need to get somebody who's an expert in this. I'm just so curious because if you play somebody else's song and you use it as the bass line for a different song, do you have to pay that band? Or only if you use the exact sample?
You have to pay publishing. Man, I don't know. And this is a question sad because my friend Adam would have known the answer to this in one phone call. But my friend Sam Hollander, we'll bring him on. He'll school us on it. Yeah.
Oh, we have. I think we have somebody coming on from that's a record executive. So maybe he knows.
I have a songwriter friend, Sam Hollander, who's written some big songs.
Yeah, because I'm curious because you're thinking about like songs like Stan, Eminem, right?
Yeah.
And he used Dido's Thank You. He gave her credit. She was on
they worked that out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess she's just it's not a sample, or I don't even know how that works.
I don't know.
All right, I'll move on because it's beyond my expertise. What number am I on? 3. Public Enemy, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. 1988. My absolutely favorite Public Enemy
record. Yeah, that was the best.
I mean,
that was Uzi Weighs a Ton and all that stuff, or no? With that,
is that Bring the Noise?
I never can remember that. Yeah, Takes a Nation of. Anyway, I mean, all the Public Enemy.
That's one of my hip hop karaoke songs. Bring the Noise and some,
oh really?
Yeah.
I mean,
Paid in Full is my go-to. So I know all the lyrics of Paid in Full.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to be there for that.
We'll do a session where we'll consume.
So this is, what did they say? It was Takes a Nation, or which one is the one they said?
It takes a nation. Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah. That had Bring the Noise on it. Yeah. That had Don't Believe the Hype.
It's the one. Don't believe the hype. It's a sequel.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Rebel Without Cause.
and they give inspiration, like so. NWA, Cube, Dre, they all gave inspiration that inspired that album, inspired them. All right, number 2, also one of my favorite albums. I mean, this top 8, whatever the first 2 were kind of shake it. These are amazing. De La Soul, 3 Feet High, and Rising.
Yes, we've talked about that. A record that's been banned on streaming services because they didn't. I mean, that seems racist to me. So somehow Paul's Boutique is okay. Like, I'm sure.
But you said it got under the grandfather.
Yeah, I think that was the difference. Is that somebody started to sue? It was the Turtles. We've talked about this, but yeah.
I think it's the Turtles. It's exactly that. I'm reading it now as I'm looking through it. It's the Turtles. You're absolutely.
The Turtles were the first lawsuit, and then it just went down, and then nobody wanted to touch it anymore.
But then P. Diddy sampled it, so I don't understand how that even.
Yeah. Who knows? And what about if you sample a sample? Yeah.
That's what he did. He sampled the sample.
He sampled, right, exactly.
And he was like, I can get away with it.
Right.
All right. So the number one album, and you have to agree to this probably because it is the most unique way to use samples that I've ever heard. It's the Avalanches.
Oh, good.
I left you.
Because if they had left that off, I would have maybe hung up the phone. Yeah, it's number 1.
I was waiting for.
You just wanted to leave meeting. John has left the meeting. All right. That is probably in my top 10, top 5 favorite albums of all time. The Avalanches.
It's just such a unique. It just. I don't know if people actually realize the complexity that you have. I don't even know
how. It's like a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece. It's taken so many different pieces of samples and making songs from these samples.
And there's not an original. I don't think there's an original thing in the entire record, but it's not like just a bass and like a drum beat. Like, it's complex musical compositions completely made up of samples that are samples you've never heard. Like, it's not, there's no samples on there that, I think there's a Madonna sample is the only sample in there that is kind of well known, but everything else is like just some random thing they found in like a record store.
Yeah. And it's really hard to even identify because they even have samples of comedy records in there. So they take bits and pieces of all that stuff. I think that one's.
I mean, my son is obsessed. That is a record that I probably listened to, like when it first came out. I would just listen to it over and over and over and over. I can't. And that's a record you have to listen to the whole record. It's almost like it wouldn't even work now because the way music is consumed now is sort of by song and not by album. And it really only kind of works all together. It's all tied together. It's like this opus, like a 60-minute like masterpiece. Anyway, I love it. They're freaking Australian. I mean, where the hell do they come from? It's like the Bee Gees who just like decided to like reinvent disco. I mean, it's just like they just came out of nowhere and it was like, what the hell is this?
I don't think people know. Like, I definitely think that
a lot of people haven't heard. They're a little bit under the radar. They had an album apparently that came out this year, but I don't think they've ever been able to match the first one.
Yeah, I think it's just such a masterpiece. I would love to hear the thought process and how they put it together, because it must have been like putting a humongous puzzle together. It just,
they actually missed something that I'm going to play it as my surprise. Did you hear? Because now that I realized that we're doing this, I just looked it up because they missed a really important record in the sampling world. I don't even know if you can buy it. The one I'm about to play you. I know you can hear it on YouTube. So anyway, we'll get there.
Well, they did. And there was a lot.
They missed some things.
And I wanted to maybe even have a follow-up show on talk about things, because I started making my list. I'm like,
I want to hear.
And even songs, like even talking about songs. That's why I started creating my list, like just songs in general. Ghetto Boys, like
it's kind of an arbitrary list, because how could you have, like I said, anything before sampling became illegal? Like any record that came out in the 80s that was in hip hop was pretty much 100% sampled. Like there was no people playing instruments back in those days. It was samples of drum beats. And so it's so arbitrary. I mean, I appreciate them trying to do it, but it's like, how could you not have, like you said, the Ghetto Boys? How could you not have Rakim and Eric B?
Rakim.
I mean, everything in their record is sampled.
There's one thing that there's I'm trying to remember the name of this. There's the Run DMC live thing that they did. Fuck, I should have been more prepared for that. There's a Run DMC.
Here we go. Fun
track.
live at the Funhouse.
That has been sampled more than anything. Like James.
But you know
Brown,
what that's a sample from? You mean the here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go.
Isn't it them? Isn't it them saying it live?
It's them saying it live, but the drum beat in the background is Billy Squire big beat.
Oh yeah.
It's it's a classic,
Yeah, exactly. And then so that sample has been used in like 150 different hip hop songs. It's been used so many times. As much as Funky Drummer has been used as a bass line in hip hop songs, that track so they left a lot off. And,
there's I have much to, in fact, I might write them after we get off. I'm pretty pissed. I'm pretty pissed right now.
I can tell.
I'm sure there was a lot of comments. If they opened up the comments, I'm sure there was a lot of hate on that.
You can move off and look at Daft Punk. I mean, the amount of samples, the amazing samples that Daft Punk use, harder, better, faster, all that stuff. So we should do a show about our list and then share our list and see what's missing there. But they got pretty good. I mean, some of the things.
No, and I'm very interested. The higher up on the list there are the lower numbers, the higher numbers. I don't know, whatever. The 10, 9. I don't even know those records. So then they're getting, it's pretty geeky when it gets to those 10 and 9. So I'll look into Meat Beat Manifesto.
Yeah.
But that also is probably them just flexing their
and Front 242, man, which I used to like back in the day.
Oh wow! All right, so let's
do the Have You Heard?
Okay, Have You Heard? This is a special edition. Well, you go first. I will because I'll end it with one of my favorite sampled records. That is
mine is. I'm not sure if it's a sampled record, but I want to share this because I think it's timely, and I want to get your feedback on some of the hate around this record, which I don't understand. Let me see if I can do this correctly. Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
They say these bars are like COVID. You get them right off the bat. Infected with SARS and Corona. Like you took a bite off of that. Then it goes from Martian to human. That's how the virus attacks. They come at me with machine guns, like trying to fight off a net. Still stacking my chips, hoes. Higher than Shaq on his tiptoes. Top the Empire State Building. This shit is like child's play children. I will annihilate, kill them. I fuck around and pile 8 million dead little juveniles. Wait, children, I'll await my trial. They tilting. Ain't nothing you say could ever trump. Mike Pence will get killed. If you're hypersensitive, I wasn't referencing the vice president. Chill. I mean, my penmanship at times tends to get ill. Violence, but with skill. That's why I hints when I write ends up with a mic and pencil getting killed. Yeah. And I'm still rider, die for the squad. So you know which side that I'm on if a battle line's ever drawn. But if I get involved, it'll be like canines in a brawl. But not so that I might pick it off. Because even if I don't have a dog in the fight, they ain't never gonna get rid of the fight.
That's dope. I love Eminem.
It gets like as it goes on, it gets more like
intricate.
His intricate and fast. Like he does his fast.
As he got older, he got really into fast rapping. But it is kind of like his skill level is so incredible that to point.
The rhymes. First of all, he's telling a story. Like, and I don't want to disparage any modern today's rapper. The mumble.
But they all suck. I don't want to disparage all of them, but they suck.
No, Travis Scott. No. I think Travis Scott. Kendrick. There's some really great. People out there. My daughter's been introducing me to a lot more, so I'm open to it. But I can't understand the lyrics, and there's no story. Yeah. I love story. I even back in the day when you listen to the old guys. Oh, remember back in the day when it was But back in the day, even when they're fighting against each other or they're challenging or there's bravado, there's a story. Like I can close my eyes and picture what they're saying. It's here and there's a drive-by and something happens. And I think M is a master at that and being able to rhyme those stories. But he's got so much hate. If you look at that YouTube video and you look at the comments, hang it up, you're old, you suck.
It's just easy to hate him. It's so easy.
But why?
Yeah, it's so unfair. I don't know.
What is there to hate?
I know. It's like raw skill. He always gives props to his influences. He's never appropriated it because he's always, given credit where, so I don't get it. I mean, he's so skillful. He's a legend. I can't believe he's still going. They don't give Snoop hate, and Snoop has been around forever. And, I don't get it.
Still going. He's creative, and he's still creating new music. But here's the last thing I'll say about it. Watch The Art of Rap, which is Ice-T's documentary. He goes out, interviews people. There's a part of that where people can he's got people freestyling.
Yeah.
And just listen, because that, to me, it's not a cipher necessarily, but it's you're off the bat, bam, you got a freestyle. Listen to the way Eminem does it versus other people, and there's some really good ones, and just hear the skill, because that's the real skill. When you're off the cuff and you're able to freestyle like that and rhyme really complicated rhymes and really complicated words in the pocket. I mean, that's skill that's very, very hard to match. And anybody who understands hip hop will put him in that Mount Rushmore top 5, top 10. Absolutely. So I don't know where the hatred comes from. But
I think people love to hate, especially the bigger you get, the bigger he was huge for a while, and people love to knock down and I guess he's done some fucked up things in his life, but not to warrant the hate he gets. So I'm with you. It's hard to follow up him. I mean, this is not on that kind of caliber of artistry, but we're just talking about sampling. And, there was a guy, Steinsky and Double D. Do you know Steinsky and Double D?
No.
So back in the day, in the 80s, there was an advertising executive. I think he worked for like one of these, I don't know. Steinsky, he worked for some sort of big advertising agency, but he was also a huge hip hop fan. And sort of as a hobby, he made these records that were like tributes to hip hop, and it were called The History of Hip Hop. And there's the History of Hip Hop 1, the History of Hip Hop 2, and the History of Hip Hop 3. And they're sample based. And he basically, I mean, I guess you could say they're like party records in that they basically combine all these different genre, all these different hip hop things into one, continuous mix of like 20 minutes. And they're incredible. And they're like, they're just amazing. And what's happened now is it's so legendary among the hip hop community that now DJs will do it live. Like he did it all taped. The whole thing is no like live DJing. It's all like cutting and editing, but people will do it live. Like great DJs like Shadow or whatever will do it live to like replicate what he did. So I'm going to play it for you now. Cool. I'm going to play you lesson 2 because it's one of my favorite lessons. This is called the James Brown mix. Right. And we'll play it for a few minutes, and you will. And I really recommend that you guys listen to Steinsky and Double D. But here's lesson 2. Nope, that's not it. Okay, here we go. Lesson 2. I'd like to know.
We take you to the Hotel Martinet in Brooklyn, where Bobby Millett and his orchestra are offering a program of dance music.
Lesson 2.
I'd like to know, are you really ready for some super dynamite soul? Introducing the world's greatest entertainer, Mr. Dynamite, the amazing Mr. Please Please himself, the hardest working man in show business. Ladies and gentlemen, the star of the show, James
Brown.
Get up, get on up, get up, get on up, stay on the scene, get on up. Like a sex machine. Get on up. Get up. Get on up. Get up. Get on up. Stay on the scene. Get on up. Like a sex machine. Get on up. Wait a minute. Fuck. Yeah. Fuck. Yeah. Fuck. Yeah. Fuck. Put your pants up.
I thought I got a pretty cat.
Ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Anyway, you get the point. Pretty good, right?
I love it.
Yeah. It's good. Okay, hold on. I'll put you on too. Yeah. So I mean, oh come on. Let me just turn it off so you can hear. Yeah. So that was Double D and Steinsky. I see it. I guess it is on iTunes. So I guess they allow it to be on iTunes because there's not one thing that's he wrote on that. But he just went together and he uses clips from like movies, and he's got like Bogart in there, and then he has like Bugs Bunny, but it's just fun.
He's got some Tweety. He's got some
Tweety in there. And then, yeah, the first one is really good. The first one is lesson 1. It's, I just, they're great. I mean, I could listen to them all day long. And he even did the first lesson 1, 2, and 3 are the ones that he did in the 80s. Then I think back by popular demand, like a few years ago, he came up with lesson 4. Not as good. A little disappointing, lesson 4. It's hard to beat lesson 1, 2, and 3, but it is a history of hip hop.
Well, the only history of hip hop that I was aware of is the one that Jimmy Fallon does with Justin Timberlake.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
If you ever watch them,
yeah, that's really brilliant. That's something. If we could rap, we would have done that, but unfortunately,
oh yeah, exactly.
They have like the same love for hip hop that we do, but they could actually do it. Yeah, that's true. Well, maybe one time we will do our own karaoke versions of. I mean, I always do Rapper's Delight because I can do the whole 15 minutes of Rapper's Delight.
All right. So you'll do Rapper's Delight,
and you'll do Paid in Full.
I'll do Paid in Full.
So that's what you do is when you go up and do your karaoke, what's the one you said you go to?
I mean, Paid in Full is definitely one of them. And
thinking of a master plan.
Then nothing but sweat inside my hand. I think in my pocket, all money spent. And then I've done It Takes Two, but It Takes Two is exhausting. I've tried to do It Takes Two. I can just do the background for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Woo. Yeah. Yeah.
Bring the Noise is another one.
Oh, you do Bring the Noise?
Yeah.
Bring the Noise.
But the Anthrax version.
Yeah, that's the better one. Oh wow.
Yeah, that one. And then I'll do some Beatles. I mean, I'm not a great singer, but it depends on the crowd. I'll do maybe.
I like to do Guilty. I like to do a duet with my wife of Barbara Streisand and George and Barry Gibb. Guilty. That's baby. Anyway, that's my Barry Gibb. Well, what a good show. You got everything. You got samples and you got Dr. Russo.
That is true. We bookended the show really well.
Yeah. How do we,
brother? Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much. Until we meet again.
Yep.
We need a sign off for you, like until we meet again. This is Len May reminding you.
Len May. It's like a Venus Flytrap from WKRP in Cincinnati.
Right. Reminding you to be real and remember, not everything is bad, but everything is personal.
But everything is personal. Yeah.
All right. We'll end with that. All right, man.
Peace.
Peace.
You got to ask yourself one question.
Thanks, man.
Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?